All right, so I'm going to talk about federal rights versus states' rights versus individual rights. And to do so, I'm kind of going to lay out two examples or two issues that people are really passionate about right now. And those two issues are abortion and vaccines. So, if we look at the cookie cutter Democrat, the cookie cutter stance of the average Democrat, they're going to be pro choice, right? They are pro abortion. And what that means is that they support the bodily autonomy of the mother, right? But if you look at the cookie cutter stance of the average Democrat in regards to vaccines, they are perhaps pro mandate, right? In other words, Democrats in regards to vaccines are anti bodily autonomy. This is an inconsistency, okay? It doesn't make any sense. How can you be pro bodily autonomy in regard to abortion while simultaneously being anti bodily autonomy in regards to vaccines? This same inconsistency is present on the Republican side, right? Except it's reversed. Republicans generally believe that that abortion should be illegal or restricted at the very least. Meanwhile, they believe that vaccine mandates should be illegal as well, right? That you shouldn't be able to mandate vaccines. In other words, Republicans are pro bodily autonomy in regards to vaccines, and they're anti bodily autonomy in regards to abortion. Again, this inconsistency exists on both sides, but it's not quite that simple, right? Because the Republican, the person who leans to the right, would argue that they are trying to protect the fetus, right? That by restricting abortion, they're protecting the rights of the fetus. Likewise, the person on the left would argue that by mandating vaccines, they're trying to protect the immunocompromised person. So, people have good intentions on both sides here, guys. It's not like Republicans are evil for wanting to restrict abortions. It's not like Democrats are evil for wanting to mandate vaccines. It's much more complicated than that. And if you are trying to put your opposition into a box and say that they're evil because they're trying to control you, you have to look at that nuance. You have to understand that their intentions are good, right? The Democrats who want to mandate vaccines, they have intentions. They have the intention of saving the immunocompromised person, just as the Republican who wants to ban abortion has the intention of saving the fetus. So, let's add a little more nuance to this discussion. In regards to abortion, the mother is independent, right? She is the one with the power, physically, right? Likewise, in contrary to that, the fetus is dependent. That fetus is vulnerable to the mother's decisions. If that mother stops eating, the fetus is going to die, right? The same applies to the vaccine issue. The person who rejects the vaccine, who's young and healthy and has a strong immune system, they are independent, right? The immunocompromised person who, again, has that weak immune system and perhaps can't beat COVID in 2 days, or perhaps it'll kill them, right? That immunocompromised person is dependent and vulnerable to the healthy individual with a strong immune system. So what we really have here is we have potential victims on both sides, but at the same time, well, the mother is more independent than the fetus, and the person with a strong immune system is more independent than the immunocompromised person. There's a more vulnerable party in both the abortion and the vaccine issue, right? The vulnerable party in the abortion issue, again, is the fetus, and in regards to the vaccine issue, it's the immunocompromised person, perhaps the old person or the obese person, right? We have to dig into this and figure out what the best option is. And the way we have done that, the way we have dug into determining what the best option is to kind of draw arbitrary lines. And what I mean by that is look at Roe v. Wade. The federal government has given the power to restrict abortion or to allow abortion to the states, right? The federal government has said they have no part in dictating how states handle abortion. And due to that, we have states who are putting restrictions on abortion, right? Republican states. And what that does, again, is it draws an arbitrary line. It gives power to the state over the mother, in the case of abortion, arbitrarily. There's no reason that the federal government should have any more say than the state government. Why does the state government have the final say? Why not the county? Why not the city? Why not the neighborhood? Why not the household or the individual? There's no reason that the state should have more power than the individual on this issue, right? We can't arbitrarily draw lines and say that it makes sense to do so. So that was the Roe v. Wade example. How about vaccine mandates? You have the Biden administration who has mandated vaccines for government employees. And on the other hand, you have even individual localities, blue states, who have also mandated vaccines. But there's also red states who have completely forgone any vaccine mandates, right? Their red states are generally pro bodily autonomy in regards to the vaccine issue, right? Why is there no consistency? Why are we arbitrarily drawing lines? How can we get rid of the arbitrarity, if that's a word? Well, let's think about this. Okay? We could keep trying to draw those arbitrary lines, and the way we do so is essentially by allowing subjective opinions to control other people, right? So if there's more red people in your state, you're shit out of luck. You're not going to be able to get an abortion. There's more blue people in your state, you're shit out of luck. You're going to have to get a vaccine. We need to learn to prioritize the rights of the individual. But again, that still leaves an issue, because the fetus is a potential individual in the future, just as the immunocompromised person is a potential victim in the future to the person who doesn't get the vaccine. So how do you prioritize the rights of the individual if there's a logical confliction here? It's not possible, right? To please everybody in this case, right? It's not possible to protect the mother, the rights of the mother, and the rights of the fetus. It's not possible to protect bodily autonomy of the person who doesn't want a vaccine and the bodily autonomy of the immunocompromised person. So what I think the answer is that we have to protect the rights of the independent individual. And that means we have to protect the rights of the mother. We have to be pro-abortion. Likewise, we have to protect the rights of the individual to reject a vaccine. We have to protect the independent individual. We cannot restrict the rights of the independent individual. We can't restrict the right to bodily autonomy because another person is dependent or because another person is vulnerable. This might seem heartless, and in truth, it might seem heartless to the left and to the right on different issues, right? The right might seem like it's heartless in regard to abortion, and the left might seem like it's heartless in regard to vaccines, right? So the reason why I think this is the better decision is because that independent individual is independent. They're going to do what they want to do regardless. People are going to get abortions one way or another if they feel like it's the best thing. Mother is going to get an abortion whether it's legal or not. They're going to drive out of state, perhaps. Likewise, the person who wants to reject the vaccine is going to reject it, or they're going to revolt one way or another, even if you try to force the vaccine on them. And if we don't protect the rights of the individual over the rights of the state or the federal government, we're essentially controlling people in a way that we can't prove is the best way to control people. We can't prove that it's best to control people. We are making an arbitrary decision without the correct data to back it up. There are two rights in the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, okay, and that's the First and Second Amendment. And I feel like these are the foundation of everything. The First Amendment basically allows for mental freedom. It allows people to share their thoughts and ideas freely. The Second Amendment is basically the right to physical freedom, and that allows people to protect themselves from those who might infringe on their physical freedom, those who may harm them, right? First and Second Amendment are the foundation of everything else. With those two amendments, individual freedom can thrive. And if we try to restrict individual freedom on top of that, we essentially we draw those arbitrary lines and we create more problems than we solve. There's a reason why the anti-vaxxer movement is larger than it's ever been right now. It's because we are forcing vaccines on people, vaccines that are not well tested and not well proven to be effective. Likewise, that might get me banned from YouTube to say that. Likewise, there's a reason why the anti-abortion movement is so strong, or the pro-abortion movement is so strong. It's because we are restricting abortion to a level we have never seen before. We are pissing off the independent individuals, and they're turning against us. It's causing backlash. Again, the independent individuals are the mother and the healthy young person who has a healthy immune system, right? Who has the ability to beat COVID without the vaccine. We don't want to restrict individual rights. We want to enable the right for people to express their mental and physical selves, and that means the First and Second Amendment, right? If you do that, you don't really need to do anything else. Everything else will fall in place. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The right to life protects the right to not. It restricts murder, right? Right to liberty restricts or allows the right to the First and Second Amendment, and the pursuit of happiness is everything else, right? You protect somebody's right to not be murdered. You protect somebody's right to speak, and you protect somebody's right to protect themselves. Everything else falls in place. The happiness solves itself. It's all these other arbitrary laws and arbitrary lines that we draw that cause the problems. When you try to restrict people, independent individuals, when you try to restrict their bodily autonomy, you create rabbit holes of radicalization. You create rabbit holes of anti-vax sentiments. You create rabbit holes of people who are now getting abortions just to spite the pro-lifers, right? We don't want that. Instead, I propose that we let people do what they want. Again, we let the independent people do what they want, and we ask the deeper questions that will solve the deeper problems. Those deeper problems are ultimately, and questions are ultimately, why the hell are people being driven to get abortion in the first place? Why are people immunocompromised in the first place? Why don't we solve those problems? Ultimately, women get abortions because they can't afford the children that they get pregnant with. It's almost like a form of mercy. It's sad to say, but it's a form of mercy. The mother can't support the child, so they just get rid of it, right? Are we going to restrict a woman's right to sex? Well, that's bad. That's, again, restricting the individual rights. Most women aren't out there getting pregnant on purpose just to have an abortion. They're not doing that, right? Now, on the other hand, there might be a few who are doing that, and the reason those few are is because they're trying to spite, again, the pro-lifers. The same applies to the vaccine issue. Why are so many people immunocompromised? Why are there so many obese people? Why is our health decaying? Why don't we try to solve the underlying causes of the abortion and the decaying health so that we don't have to put band-aids like vaccines and abortion bans, so we have to restrict people's rights in order to solve the problem that was created by a deeper issue. So why is our health decaying? Why are people getting abortions again? It's usually the economy. That's usually the problem. People can't afford to have the children, like I said. Likewise, people can't afford to be healthy. They're busy working 60 hours a week. They come home, they don't have time to eat, so they buy a bunch of junk food, they eat the junk food, or maybe they're so stressed out that they have to get some dopamine rush, so they drink alcohol, or they go gambling, or they pick some other drug, or you name it, right? We are picking the unhealthy coping mechanisms because of the economic stress that's put on us. And that economic stress is completely manufactured today. It's not like there's not enough stuff to go around. It's not like there's not enough healthy food to go around. It's not like people need to be going to work 40 hours a week when they really only work 2 or 3 hours. It's not like people have to go into the office to work when they could do their work from home. Our economy has built up a bunch of waste, whether it's wasted time, or whether it's wasted economic output. We have to understand that if we distribute the needs to people appropriately, they won't fall into these pit holes, these abortion pit holes, and these anti-vaccine sentiments. People will be more likely to want to get a vaccine to help the immunocompromised person if you're not forcing them to do it. People will be more likely to carry their child to term if you're not putting them in conditions that they can't provide for that child in. It's really simple. Stop blaming other people for the problems in society and solve the environmental causes that are leading to those problematic behaviors that you see in people. It's not the people's fault. It's not the Democrats' fault or the Republicans' fault. It is our collective fault that we have failed to create an economy that can support children, or an economy that can support health. It's really simple. So again, in the mindset, or rather in the framing of federal versus states versus individual rights, you have to understand the only federal rights that we need are the First and Second Amendment. Everything else will fall into place. You have to stop trying to you have to protect people's right to express their mental capacity and their physical capacity. And if you do those two things, we don't need all of these other laws. I mean, if you look at the average localities law books, you'll find a bunch of stuff that's just so unnecessary, right? People will drive the speed limit because they recognize that if they don't, they're going to kill people, and people won't be driven to get fast sports cars if you're not trying to control them all the time, if you're not stressing them out at work. Look at the average person who's driving some bike 120 miles mile an hour down the highway. They're doing it because it's their way of getting dopamine, because the economic structure has failed to give them that dopamine in a more appropriate manner. And maybe they can go drive 120 miles an hour on some track instead of doing it on a public road. If we just learn how to distribute the resources appropriately, right? In regard to that example, you get some young kid who has been stressed out his whole life, has been told what to do his whole life, and you give him the ability to buy a $5,000 motorcycle that'll go 150 miles an hour. What's he gonna do? He's gonna go fucking drive the motorcycle 150 miles an hour because he can, because it's freedom at last. Give people true freedom, and they will be inclined to help their neighbor. They will be inclined to act in a way that actually benefits society as a whole. Restrict their freedom, and they will act in the opposite manner every single time. So thanks for watching.